Hello class, I am Kasidee Nichols and today I'm going to be talking about the life of Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet was a writer and leading abolitionist during the mid-1800s at a time where women were not encouraged to voice their opinions on political issues. Harriet used her writings, more specifically her most popular work, Uncle Tom's Cabin, as a medium to influence and contribute to the abolishment of slavery. My thesis is that Harriet Beecher Stowe influenced and contributed to the abolishment of the slavery institution through the use of her writings and vivid storytellings. Harriet is also remembered for contributing heavily and pioneering for women's rights, though she does not get to see women get the right to vote in her lifetime. Harriet was born Harriet Elizabeth Beecher in June of 1811 in Litchfield, Connecticut, the sixth of 11 children to her parents Lyman, who was a pastor, and Roxanne. Harriet attends one of the only academies in the country, encouraging girls to learn the same material as boys. At 18, she becomes a teacher at Hartford Female Seminary that was founded by her older sister. At 21, Harriet is relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio. In the same year, she meets a man by the name of Calvin Stowe, a Bible professor at her father's seminary, who she describes as rich in Greek and Hebrew, Latin and Arabic, and alas, rich in nothing else. In 1836, the two were married and went on to have 7 children, including a set of twin girls. When an errand brings Harriet across the Ohio River to the Kentucky side, she suddenly becomes face to face with a slave auction. She is horrified and disgusted by the scene of the white men poking and prodding the innocent men. She later recalls this experience in the writings of Uncle Tom's Cabin in Chapter 30. Cincinnati becomes ground zero for runaway slaves from the South. Harriet befriends a number of fugitives, welcoming them into her home as part of the Underground Railroads, hearing hundreds of horror stories, aiding them, and seeing their scars. Around this time in 1849, Harriet's 1-year-old son Samuel passes away. The blow broke her heart, but she later said it allowed her to better understand the pain of slave parents who are separated from their children forever. The following year, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Law, forcing Northerners to return escaped slaves to the South. This is also known as the Compromise of 1850. Some compromise. Stowe's sister said, "Hattie, if I could use a pen as you can, I would write something that would make this whole nation feel what an accursed thing slavery is." Stowe replied, "If I live, I will." After putting her now 6 children to bed, Harriet started to write Uncle Tom's Cabin by candlelight. She began to recall the stories from the escaped slaves, shining a bright light on the dark hidden horrors of slavery. Harriet was indulged in writing this book, and it is even rumored that she kept the first copy of the book under her pillow as she slept. Uncle Tom's Cabin follows the story of 2 slaves, Uncle Tom and Elisa Harris, both with families and the favorites of their masters. Young George, not to be confused with George Shelby, the master of Tom, says he will free the slaves and hire them as servants. When Elise overhears that she and her baby will be sold, she runs to Uncle Tom's cabin where they decide she will leave and he will stay. Elise made a desperate retreat across the river just in the dusk of twilight. The gray mist of evening, rising slowly from the river, enveloped her as she disappeared up the bank, and the swollen current and floundering masses of ice presented a hopeless barrier between her and her pursuer. This is a true event Harriet recites into the story of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Elise, while fleeing to Canada, reunites with her husband and escapes safely with him and her baby. When Tom is moved further south, he meets a little girl named Ava and saves her from drowning when she falls off a boat. Her father is so grateful he offers to buy Tom. Ava and her father later die, forcing Tom to be sold again to an evil master named Simon who beats Tom for being Christian. Cassie drugs Simon in an attempt to kill him, but Tom suggests the two run away instead. However, because of Tom's injuries, he is unable to leave and tells Cassie to take another. At this point, young George returns and frees Tom and his family and the rest of the slaves on the plantation. The story focuses on 2 slaves who run away from slavery and the other who endured it, both receiving kindness and enduring hardship. Uncle Tom's Cabin was published in serial form over the course of 9 months in 1851. The book version was released in the summer of '52 and sold millions of copies in and out of the country. It is said to be the first best-selling book next to the Bible. Harriet uses this story to expose the horrors and show how unkind slavery is to everyone involved. The book received positive and negative criticism. Outraged Southerners accused Harriet of fabricating lies about slavery. One Southern editor said, "I would have the reviews as hot as hellfire, blasting and searing the reputation of the vile wretch in petticoats that could write such a volume." Harriet responds to these accusations by citing the slave owner's own words back to them from the Southern ads she had so diligently studied. Leaving Harriet furious, this led her to publish a follow-up story titled A Key to Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a book full of evidence to back up and fully support her stories. It was said President Lincoln checked this book out of the Library of Congress as he geared up for the political fight over the emancipation of slaves in 1862. 10 years after the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, on December 2nd, 1862, a meeting was held at the White House, which Harriet, of course, attended. This is where she was first introduced to President Lincoln, who reportedly said to her, "So you're the little lady who wrote the book that started this great war." On the 31st of the same month and year, a huge group met at the Music Hall in Boston to ring in the new year when Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was to take effect at midnight. On the stage stood Harriet Tubman, Weldon Phillips, and Frederick Douglass, who addressed the crowd. The crowd began chanting Harriet Beecher Stowe, who stood up in the balcony, eyes full of tears. Harriet wrote a total of 29 books, including The Mister's Wooing and The Ghost of Mill. After the war, she took up the cause of women's suffrage. She supported the Women's National Loyal League and in 1866 helped fund the American Equal Rights Association. She was elected president of State's Women's Suffrage Association of New Jersey and spent her life serving the cause. After her husband dies in 1886, her health starts to decline and it is believed she may have begun to suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia. It's recorded that she began to write Uncle Tom's Cabin over again, believing that she was writing it for the first time. She died on July 1st, 1896, at the age of 85 in Hartford, Connecticut. Harriet Beecher Stowe gave women a voice on political issues and aided in bringing an end to the institution of slavery. Harriet once said, "I speak for the oppressed who cannot speak for themselves." Harriet was a leading woman of the 1800s, giving a voice to the oppressed groups during this time period. Harriet's writings will live on forever as a reminder of injustice. Thank you.